Dude, you are getting well. Welcome, dudes of all genders, to Dude, You're Getting Well, the podcast where we talk about how leaders transform their pain into their purpose and how you can do the same. Really, how all of you are a leader. And no matter what you've been through, who you are, where you are, what your title is after your name, this is the podcast to be at if you're ready to up-level your self-care. And today we're going to be talking about up-leveling your self-confidence so you can guaranteed to walk away with some practical tools as well as some really fun and inspiring stories as I get to interview one of my favorite people on the planet. She's a new friend and really inspiring human in the world. And I'll let her tell you a little bit more about what she's up to. But she goes by the self-confidence guru. And this is Sarah Elizabeth. Welcome, Sarah.
Oh, thank you, Ben. Thank you for having me.
It's such a pleasure. Thanks for being here. Sarah, how did you get the title? Why self-confidence guru? Where did that come from?
So where that came from was I had this definition of confidence where look good all the time, show no weakness, right? Have it all going on. And that existed for a while, probably like 28 years of life. And I thought that was what confidence was. And then I went through this transformational process where I recognized that I wasn't truly showing and being myself. And once I started to do that, that's when I actually felt confident. And I recognized the importance of that. If you want to do anything in life, if you just want to be yourself, you need to be really confident in who you naturally are, not the perceived version that I think we all cultivate over time.
That's a great answer. Wow. Well, I heard something in that, you said, being that looking the certain way. And, I felt like swagger. And then I was thinking, oh yeah, fake it till you make it. Right. That's what we're all taught. So, I feel like some people are like, yeah. Then they're like, oh, wait, that's not confidence. Uh-oh. So can you break that down a little bit for us? Like for those who are feeling like, well, if you do that, isn't that like fake it till you make it? What was missing for you? Why doesn't that work? Why isn't that self-confidence?
Well, why it didn't work for me and why I think it's not self-confidence is there's a false sense of self. So there's this definition of, fake it till you make it. And I think we take that as fake who you are until you get to be who you are. And the truth of the matter is you actually be who you say you're going to be now. Even if you say, for example, I'm going to be a millionaire, what are the little things you could do now with your $10? Right? Acting like you're a millionaire, operating like you're a millionaire now. And so what I recognized for myself is I was always a safe space for everyone else to open up to. Since I was a child, people would come talk to me and I would guide them and support them in believing in themselves. But I would never allow people to do that for me because over here, it was always like, I got it all together. I'm confident already. However, what I felt inside was this sense of like never being supported, never being appreciated, never like having the opportunity to break down and really just be with my stuff. So I think when we say fake it till you make it, a lot of the times we're ignoring our stuff and it builds up in our body, it builds up in our mind, right? And as much as you try to fake it in your actions, you're still feeling and thinking a certain way about yourself.
Love that you said that it was also in your body. Yeah. So that resonated with me about that, everything you said. I heard especially the, faking who you are. So if you don't know who you are, how do you find it? How did you find it?
How did I find it? I love that question. So I've always loved self-development books. And I'll tell you, I love them because they like open you up to thinking differently and asking different questions. And then I have grown to, I won't say dislike them, but I'm like, okay, there's other ways to go about this because there's always a sense of like, I need to fix something.
What were some of your favorite books?
So
not to knock anything, but like what actually did light you up?
What lit me up? Well, interestingly enough, what is the name of this book? So, How to Be a Badass, I think is the name of the title, was
Hmm.
one book that I read that I really loved. And then A Return to Love.
Mm.
A Return to Love. I read that on a flight to Italy, and I was like, like, whoa. I don't even think I was loving myself until I read that book. So that was major. And Start with Why.
Okay.
Huge, 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 huge. And I use that in everything I do now. Like, why am I doing this? Or why am I feeling this way? Like, why is a great question to ask yourself. But those are some of my top threes, my top three books. Your question. Oh, how to find
Hmm.
yourself. So
And then you were saying, well, actually, those books, I mean, that worked up into a point. You said you're still using some of it, but something
mhm.
was still missing.
Yeah, something was missing. And what I would say is that in reading books, you're like with yourself, which is great, right? But it's not until you're with other people that you get to actually have feedback about who you're being and how you're being. And I
Mm.
think that feedback is really important because we have an egocentric idea of how we're being and who we're being in the world. And then you actually get to be with people. And I did 2 personal development programs in 2018. It was right after I stopped working. My plan was to quit my job in New York. I actually got fired December 4th, 2017. I had a whole like letter written out to give them on January 15th, 2018, a month before I got fired. And I
Wow.
went into real estate full time. And thinking after having doing it part time for a few months, I'm like, I'm gonna kill it. I'm going to be amazing full time. That was not the experience that I had. So I was like, okay, I need some support here. And the universe would
Mm.
have it. I aligned with someone that introduced me to Momentum Education in New York. And I went through their entire basic advanced leadership process. And there was a lot of hugging, a lot of crying, a lot of being with people. And it was really good to hear one, like, yes, you are amazing in these places. And then there are places where you can improve. And as much as you try to hide those areas, it shows up in your results. And I was
Mm.
like, holy cow. Like when I'm by myself and reading self-development books, there's no feedback. It's just me reading the book, think I'm doing it all
Yeah.
right, And then after that, I went into Landmark, which we are both very familiar with. I did the Landmark
Yeah.
Forum in November, November of the same year, and that's when I really got present to really being honest with myself about who I'm being and what's being reflected back to me. And so my number one tip would definitely be get into some personal development work. And not only the one-on-one stuff, but get into some group environments. I think that was a
Mm.
really good opportunity to see myself.
That is a really great tip. I love that. I think that's, such great feedback, right? If we're
Mhm.
not getting feedback, it's kind of like living in a bubble and
Yep.
expecting yourself to grow. And
Yes.
I think a lot of us are looking to avoid conflict in that sense. But
Mm.
actually, through conflict and dissonance, I think that we grow, right?
Mhm. Yep.
Like a new tree, when it's growing, has to be blown around in order to have its roots strengthened.
Mhm.
So as we find out like what's important to us, it's some of that, adversity that I think really helps us grow. And even people
Mm.
asking why,
Oh
you're
yeah.
like, well, what do you mean? How dare you? But you're rather than really saying, well, why? I love that. And then the why beneath that. I remember when I was acting, I thought it wasn't what I wanted to do. And someone just asked me why a
Mm.
few for a few minutes over and over again. And I really got to that it was really my passion. I had such a fear of failure still built in.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I think I was really trying to fake it till I made it then, being that I was the face of this huge global company and on TV all day. And I felt this responsibility, but I didn't really know who I was. And
Mhm.
so I think that's when fame and success can actually have a crippling effect. Sometimes I feel like if we don't have a great base, right? If we don't have integrity with ourselves, how can we grow anything on top of that? So I
Right.
hear you starting to talk about your relationship with yourself,
Yes.
right? And how you started to transform that.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. What you shared in terms of feedback is so important. I remember an exercise where it's like, call these people in your life and actually ask them, like, how are you showing up?
Mm.
And that was triggering. And I called people like my mom because she was, in my opinion, one of the most critical people. And I used to take it so personally. And it wasn't until I had this constructive environment to go ask her questions that I got that she like loves me and she
Mm.
wants the best for me and she wants me to be the best version of myself. And it's never from a I'm chopping you down, but it's like, hey, I know in your head you think you're like the shining star and you are, and there's an impact of how you're being sometimes that you may not be aware of. And it was like, okay, thank you for getting me in front of the mirror, because
Mm.
that's technically what people are in our lives. They're mirrors. So yes, the personal development work, which I continue to do, I'm definitely an advocate of self discovery is a lifelong journey. It's not oh, I did that one thing that one time and that's it, because we're always growing. So I definitely think that's an ongoing process. And then two other things that I really love. First off, I'm totally into astrology. Absolutely love it.
Mm.
I think when I was younger, I was very much into the stereotypical aspects of it. And then as I matured and I started my own business, I was like, let me tap in deeper to what the stars actually say about me. And I've learned to read charts and I'm like, holy cow, a lot of what I want to do and accomplish is already aligned. Like,
Mm.
I would have never
Mm.
known this if I didn't tap into astrology from a very empowered aspect. And in tandem with that would be human design, which I learned probably about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. And it just everything clicked for me after I learned human design. I found out that I'm a projector. I'm like, this is why I've been asking all these questions and reading people my entire life. Like, it's part of who I
Mm.
am. So I would say, and last thing I would say is some of those like typical like personality tests as well. Those are actually, I think, really helpful, right? Because they're like a guide. You don't have to exactly do what you read, but they definitely guide you and keep you in your own lane. And I think that's super important in life.
That's great to give you some. It's more feedback, right? Like, hey,
Yeah.
there's another part of the population that actually really relates with the way you think,
Yes.
and they're called this, which
Yes.
can be helpful. Although I remember my family like sort of othering each other because my dad and I were proud extroverts and my mom and sister
Mhm.
were like proud introverts. And we're always like, well, that's because you're an introvert. Well, it's because you're an extrovert. And it was like, we all go back and forth, actually. I went,
Yeah.
we were talking about the pandemic a little bit before this, and I definitely crawled in during that time. And it was actually one thing I've seen is I've been developing men's work again, and we
Mhm.
created Dude School for men to learn from each other. That it was in that process that I realized, oh my gosh, I'm afraid to be in person with
Mm.
men again. And that's something, or with anyone really, in
Mhm.
groups, right? It was almost like we were taught during the pandemic to get scared. And then suddenly I didn't like this. It was so much more vulnerable. And I went to theater school. I was like rolling on the floor, half clothed with, making weird noises and getting in our bodies, so it wasn't like a pretty big hippie, but this thing, it was really confronting. And that's when I was like, oh man, I need to start an in-person group.
Mhm.
That's exactly what I need to do. So I just
Mhm.
started a retreat, and I try to give myself the medicine I want to receive also,
Mm.
like offer that.
Yes.
It's the way I hold myself accountable. But I'm curious with you. So we were talking about the personal growth and development spaces you went through, and then finding human design and really getting that feedback in astrology, right?
Mhm.
But um, how does this all tie into self-confidence for you?
Mm. So, how it ties into self confidence for me is I've spent a lot of time wanting to prove myself. My parents sent me to the best schools. I was asking you if the photo on the back of the what do you call this? What we're looking at here, if it was Mesa, Arizona.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
the reason I asked that because I went to boarding school in Arizona. I did a lot of hiking and like lived out there for
Mm.
4 years. And then from there, I went to university, and then the expectation was go live in a big city, get a great paying job. So I did all of those things. Um, And I recognized that none of that was for me.
Mm.
Right? It was all because my parents spent all this money sending me to private school. I have to do a good job. I have to have a great job. And I recognized that the confidence that I was wanting to exude wasn't from Sarah doing things that Sarah loved doing.
Mm.
So once I started doing the personal development work, I remember sitting in Momentum's room, and I think it was like the second day, and I'm listening to this guy ask questions, and I was like, wait, does he get paid for this? And they're like, yeah, he's a life coach. And I was like, wait, there's a thing called life coaching? And they're like, absolutely. And I was like, holy cow, I've been asking people questions and loving on them like all my life. I would have totally been doing this from day one if I knew it existed.
Mm.
So it was me doing this work and in my eyes kind of learning myself newly versus operating based on this self that had been established and had been expected. So the way for me that all of this ties in is it keeps me in alignment with who I am. And I don't get distracted like, oh, let me go apply for all these jobs to make more money because what I'm doing that I actually love isn't making that much money yet. And I get to have that confirmation, even if it's from a friend or an old client or someone I'm working with, by being myself and being with them and them having transformation. It's a reminder that you're doing what you're supposed to do. You're doing a great job at it. I know that success is supposed to look like something specific. You're going to have that. And I think if I didn't do this work, if I didn't have the awareness that I'm a projector, if I didn't have the awareness that my nurturing sense of being and my emotions are super important, if I didn't know that, I would have given up on this a long time ago because it's not turning the results I would have expected by now. And so I think in a lot of aspects, whether that's business or even in relationship right now, I'm in like the first real amazing long-term relationship of my life. I would have quit on this very quickly if I hadn't established the confidence in who I am and been able to speak for myself. Because I would have been like, I don't want to fight with this person. I don't want to have difficult conversations. I don't want to be vulnerable. But all of that stems out of being confident. Like, this is who I am. I'm going to grow. I'm going to develop. I'm going to transform. But this is who I am right now. And I accept it. And the minute that you are confident in who you are, like, there's no other choice for people to have but to accept it as well.
Amen. Can you just say that again?
Yes. If you are confident in who you are and how you show up and who you are up until this point, then no one else has any other choice but to respect and I would say like love that version of you.
Yeah, that takes something. Thank you for saying that and repeating it.
Yeah.
I need to hear it again too. I was like writing it down because like, this is so good and I need to hear it because my brain, I will forget this. And it's really, I can feel it. And it resonates with me. So I know it must be resonating with someone out there listening now. So if you are listening, please don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and just comment here. Let us know what's resonating. Feel free to ask any questions. And Sarah, thank you for this. So we're talking about, self-confidence and how to build that and fake it, the opposite of fake it till you make it, which comes up again for me here when when we're saying, if you be that confidence, it's going to show up for someone else. So if you don't have it and faking that doesn't really work, or, trying to fake who you are, then what have you found? Like, what would you say to your old self now? Or what would you say to anyone who's struggling with that self-confidence or believing in themselves? Or, I mean, man, it can be really scary to like stand up for yourself in that way. It makes yourself vulnerable to rejection and things like that, to potential, for me, I used to have the biggest abandonment complex. So anyone saying no to me or needing space or not responding well, I was like, I would chase them, and that just made it worse. Right.
Yeah.
So what would you say to those people, or including your younger self or your pre-transformed self?
Oh, You know, the thing that's like blaring is stop looking for yourself in other people.
Oof. Mm.
Yeah. And I needed to hear that today. Like, stop looking for yourself in other people. I think we are not okay with people's responses because we want them to be okay with us so badly. So you ask for what you want, they may not say yes, and then you have this total mental breakdown like, what's wrong with me? Why didn't I do this correct? Why don't they love me? Versus where I'm at now, and I'm continually like grounding myself, like that tree you said that has to go through the wind. I feel like that
Mm.
tree, you know? It's like advocate for yourself. And if that person is a no, or if that person has more questions, like that's simply an opportunity for you to be grounded in you.
Mm.
And it's effing challenging. It is.
Yeah. I'm like, that sounds, I mean, easier said than done sometimes to
Hmm.
advocate for yourself, right? So how
Hmm.
did you learn to advocate for yourself?
Ooh, I would say that asking those questions was a major part of it. Like, I would say interviewing the people in my life. That's kind of how it went.
Mm.
Um, I used to, I guess, suffer through a lot of things on my own without asking for help because I was like afraid of how I would look. And then I just kept doing it. And I kept doing it and I kept doing it. I kept dealing with the no's. Like, okay, what am I making this mean about me when someone says no? What am I making this mean about me when someone says yes? And then the ask just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm still, every day working on this. But I think the best way to go about that is to just do it over and over and over again. Um, I think what we learn in life is someone says no, all right, I'm going to go climb in my hole and not ask anyone again because that
Mm.
hurts so much because they
Mm.
said no.
Mm.
But the people that get what they want in life, they keep asking, they keep advocating, they keep speaking up because it's like this thing that I think we've probably all heard. If it's a dream of yours, that means it's possible. So if you let it go because someone says no, you're actually giving up on yourself versus keep going, keep asking, keep
Mm.
advocating, keep recording, keep whatever it is for you because it is yours.
Mm. Thank you for that reminder.
Hmm. You're welcome.
When was there a time when you really like when was that the most painful point when you realized like what you were doing wasn't working? What was that like? Uh-oh, I think I might need some help in this area.
Oh my
Right?
gosh.
What was that like?
That was probably all of my time in New York, which I was there for 11 years, but
Mm.
not having a true relationship with my mother, like feeling that, not being able to call her and cry and like share what was really going on with me without feeling judged, which was what I was creating that. But
Mm.
um, that was it. That was really it. Because the moment that I focused in on healing that relationship, like everything else in my life became so much easier. But going through that and feeling like I couldn't call my mom or I couldn't talk to her honestly about what I was going through, for me, that was like very, very troubling because I came from this woman. She raised me.
Mm.
I know she loves me, but why does it always feel like we're fighting each other?
I mean, we might need to do a whole nother episode on this. Yeah, like chosen family and family of origin.
Mm,
So for those listening who are like, why couldn't she talk to her mom?
mm,
Like what was there for you? Why did it feel like you didn't have a choice?
mm, mm.
Or why did you choose not to?
I'll tell you the pivotal moment. I had just went off to boarding school. I was about 12.
Hmm.
And I went out there I went to eighth grade out there.
Was that by
And
choice?
no, that was not by choice. My parents were like, hey, education is better somewhere else in the Virgin Islands. And this is where
Hmm.
my uncle lived in Arizona at the time. So we're going to send you to a
Okay.
boarding school near family.
Okay. I went to a school as a day student that had boarding
Oh,
students, so I knew a little bit about what that's like. So I'm just curious because I definitely noticed a difference between one who were there by choice and ones who
oh
weren't,
yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
They, yeah,
Very clear.
yeah.
Very clear.
And that was same thing. Their parents wanted to have them a good, want them to
Hmm.
have a good education, and hopefully this would be it. But it seemed like it was like, well, wherever you go, there you are, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So So you were 12.
Yes.
They told you how
Yeah,
to
you're
go.
going off to boarding school, and I love that opportunity. I'm still grateful for it. I
Mm.
was happy to be off in the world. Trust me, I was a very outspoken young lady. Um,
You know.
so I didn't look at it as a bad thing. I was happy to go. However, there is something that happened before I left the BVI. You know,
Mm,
girls, hormones, boys, things happen. And I wanted to share this thing with my mother because it was like on my mind all the time. So I call her and I share with her, that I had gone through that other step in life as a young lady. And her feedback was just like, why would you do that? What's wrong with you? From that day on, I could not tell my mom anything
mm,
because I was looking for a safe space. I was looking for guidance. I was looking for some type of support. And what I got was like very diminishing conversation.
mm,
And from that day on, it was like, okay, well, I can talk to my friends. And that's what I did. I talked to my friends about stuff. And in my mind, that equaled I can't tell my mom stuff.
mm,
I can't talk to my mom about certain things. So whenever I would open up, or even if there was something that happened, I actually ended up not getting invited back to that boarding school my junior year. And the response to that was like, you're such a disappointment. Like that was a whole nother conversation.
mm,
And so there was like these repetitive experiences of I did something, I got negative feedback. I did something, I got negative feedback. And what it did to my self-confidence was just like chop it down, chop, 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 chop. So that's kind of how I was in life because I couldn't talk to my mom. So then I didn't really share myself with other people either. And so when you ask that question, like what was that area of my life? Like I could feel it in my body, like just not being able to express the truth of me openly and trust that it would be received. Like it just took me over.
yeah.
So
Wow.
healing that relationship was an opening of my self-expression, an opening of like, hey, you need to just be okay with you. This is your life. The choices that you make are yours, and you're going to get feedback. However, that person's not living your life, and that doesn't mean that you need to cut yourself down in any way because they don't get it or they don't agree
Mm,
with it.
mm. Yeah. Yeah. And must be, especially challenging when it's, your mother, right?
Mhm.
The person of origin you talked about, like I came out of her,
Mhm.
from her, and you're, um, so that's really present there. And it's wonderful that your mom was able to repair that with you, like go through that with you. I know I've heard some mothers, just and parents and kids like just not being able to come to terms on anything, and end up needing to actually not talk in order to have a relationship,
Yeah.
because it's just always toxic if one person is not willing to take responsibility, and there still is that continued reinforcement that it's not a safe space, like then
Mhm.
how, finding a safe space.
Mhm.
So it's so beautiful that you were able to see like that awareness at some, like, when was the moment that you realized like, oh my God, I've been creating my mom as not a safe space? It sounds like she actually was in some way, but it just wasn't, she wasn't able to be that at that point.
Right.
um
That point was definitely in the landmark forum.
hmm,
Absolutely. That
yeah.
that already always listening portion where it's like you create the way that you hear people. You create people and they live into that. And when I learned that concept, I mean, I remember sitting in the room and hearing that and being like, oh my God, the reason why I feel like my mom talks to me like I'm 12-year-old Sarah is because I have created that monster over there. Like I've
Mm.
created that. So every time I call her, that's what I experience. And, I was able to share that with her. And she was like, I'm happy that you got that. I love you. And she also admitted, yeah, some of the things I've said may have been really hurtful. It was only because I wanted to protect you. And
Mm.
I've heard that before, but this was the first time that I could actually receive what she was saying.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, thank you
So,
for that.
yeah, yeah. And I had to go first. I had to make our relationship a priority. And I also had to go and get these tools to approach it in a different way because I tried before. I tried the people pleasing aspect. Oh, let me just do everything she wants me to do. But then I felt like crap all the time,
Mm.
or let her say whatever she wants to me and then I won't say anything back. And it's like, okay, but I have an opinion. So I tried all of the let me roll over and just let her
Mm.
be herself. And then I had to go the route of like, I'm human, I have a voice, it matters, I have feelings, they matter. And yes, she's my mother, and I get to speak to her like, we're here, you know?
Mm. Wow. And how did you muster? I hear relationships end because someone's like, well, if they're not willing, then I'm not willing. So I
Mm.
heard you kind of say, well, I'm gonna take the reins. I'm gonna go first
Mm-hmm.
and stand for that relationship. And then you also mentioned people pleasing, which I think is
Mm.
really kind of key in some of what you were sharing about, like what wasn't working. It's trying to do what you thought she wanted rather than just being yourself, and then dealing with that,
Mm-hmm.
and then finding the relationship in the middle there. So for all the people who are out there like people pleasing and bending over for their friends and their family, how did you stop people pleasing,
Ooh, ooh.
or how did you curb your people pleasing?
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is a great
I'm a
question.
people pleaser in recovery, or recovering people pleaser. So
Hmm.
I'm always curious about this.
I would say that understanding that I have a purpose, and I want everyone that's listening to this, like you have a purpose, and your purpose is yours and yours alone. That
Mm.
was the number one thing that transformed me in terms of how I dealt with things in my life, because the people pleasing aspect was like, for example, my mom would be like, hey, can you run this errand for me? And I would be in the middle of doing something that I really want to do, and I would drop it and go do that for her. And then I would have to deal with the ramifications of, okay, I put that on the back burner, didn't get it done, whatever. And then I recognize that Sarah has a purpose that's individual to my mom's purpose. She got her thing
Mm.
going on, I got my thing going on. And let's say a couple months later, she came to me. She's like, can you go run this errand right now? And I was like, I can't right now. I'm working on something, but I can in an hour. And the effect of that was me advocating for me, but then also being clear, like, I prioritize you as well. All right.
Mm.
So my intention was, I still love you. I love you very much. I want to support you. However, this thing for Sarah and Sarah's purpose is very important. And I think the key thing for anyone to take away from that and what supports that is, what is your routine for self?
Mm.
I journal every single morning. I don't care what is going on. I need that time for myself.
Yeah. Wow. I love talking about this with
Mm.
clients, especially parents, because they're like,
Mhm.
how the hell? What do you mean? Have you ever
Mhm.
tried to be a parent? I don't have time for myself. You
Yeah.
kidding me? That is a luxury I don't have,
Yeah.
which I always love to challenge. It's a little more challenging for me because I'm not a
Mhm.
parent
Mhm.
actively in the traditional aspect of the word, but
Yeah.
so many people I shepherd, right? But if I notice the second I don't start taking care of myself, like, oh my god, I'll take on all my partner's stress, or like all, like, I just, like, forget about it.
Yeah.
I always do, like, the litmus test is, what does my office look like? Because I have kind of my
Mm.
own room, and she has her kind of, we have a space where we're allowed to be messy and it's ours, but also it's like, ooh, yeah, I look around, I'm like, I know how I'm doing based on what it's like.
Yeah.
um so what are some of the ways that, I love that you said how you can prioritize you as well, right? And
Mhm.
you're I think what I was bringing up, like, train people how to teach you. I mean, how to treat you, right?
Yes.
So if you're like, oh, I'm always willing to give up my thing for yours, then that's actually, you become, and I hear this for a lot of people, those people that, and I'll say myself, when in that time, if you're the go-to person and you're always the yes
The
man
yes
or
man.
yes person,
Yep.
right? Then suddenly that's how you train people. And then if they're like, where are you? If you're not showing up right away, or you're always putting out emergencies. And so it eventually ever keeps you. And I actually found that it was a great way to avoid my feelings, keeping myself really busy and saying yes to everything else. I didn't have to really show up for, I don't think I was ever really present with anyone. I mean, I finally, like you said, got some feedback too. And my friends were like, yeah, I mean, I was called the yes man and gas pedal Ben, because I just got in a relationship. I'm like, boom, I don't even know if it's healthy, but let's go, how do you for those yes people out there, like, how do you start to curb that? Like, how do you take your power back? Like, stop that people pleasing.
Ooh. Be selfish.
Oh,
no.
Oh, no.
That's the worst thing how could you be so selfish? Oh my God, my mom used to, when I finally owned that word, that was like atomic bomb in my relationship, especially with my mom. Like you said, when I had trained her that I would do whatever you want me to do when you want me to do it. And then I came into this space of like, well, if I don't pour into my cup and keep my cup full, then how am I going to serve anybody else? And Abraham Hicks, who I absolutely am in love with, and so grateful that I found her years ago, she's like, you can never get sick enough to make a sick person better.
I'm writing that one down. Yeah, I love it when Abraham's dropped that.
Oh my gosh.
You can never get sick enough
to make a sick person better. So being selfish isn't about, oh, I'm only doing for me. Being selfish is I'm doing for me so that I can healthily, happily, joyfully choose to do for someone else.
That's beautiful. I love this.
So anyone listening, my answer to you is like, be selfish. Be okay with being selfish, own being selfish, and also be at peace. And it may take some time knowing that you being selfish is 1000% a benefit to everyone around you. Because then they actually get the best version of you, not the I'm looking for your approval version of you.
Or the depleted you.
Yeah.
Right. You started to talk about, I have some closing questions for you. This has been of such value. I have like so many quotes. I'm like, how am I going to share all this? Well, if you're listening, go back and listen to it. I think that's the gem. This is one that you can definitely listen to again, and subscribe to our podcast if you haven't already, so that you can be the first one to get this when it drops live. And along with, so much other beautiful humans and their medicine here for human flourishing. So, we're speaking right now, closing with Sarah Elizabeth, the self-confidence guru. And Sarah, one of the closing questions I love to ask all my guests is, like, you talked about making the time for you. Like, what is your, what's your morning routine, or what's your self-care routine?
Okay. 8 hours of sleep.
Okay.
I do not budge on my sleep. I was telling my partner the other night, I was like, he's like, do you know when you're falling asleep? I was like, of course I do. I fight sleep off. And he's like, you and sleep? You do not fight. I was like, okay. All right. So 8 hours of sleep, a glass of water every morning. That's a necessary. I walk 3 to 4, sometimes 5 miles at least 3 times a week.
Right.
And I journal every single day. And I also listen to something that is inspirational, usually inspirational. Motivation comes from outside. I like to get things that have me aligned, and then I operate accordingly. So sleep, water, exercise, basically some type of movement. I journal, which is I journal in a sense of like creating my day. Like, I'm grateful. Thank you for this and this and this and this. Thank you for the magic and miracles that the day will bring. And Yeah. And I listen to something inspirational, usually Abraham
Mm,
Hicks.
mm. Very cool. I love that. And if your life was a movie, a Hollywood film up until this point, what would be the title of it?
Oh my gosh. Wow. Different locations, different girl.
Cool. That sounds like a fun movie. It's like, ooh, a little spicy too.
Yeah.
And if your husband was to name this film, what might he call it?
Spicy mouth.
That's great.
Oh wow. Yeah, he's like, you just, the craziest things that come to your mind. If I feel like I'm reading someone or saying something that's like a dagger, he's like, you say it anyways. And I was like, yeah, I think that's the Caribbean girl in me. He's like, okay.
Well, do you have any secret hidden talents or special talents we might not know of you as beyond the relationship? I mean, the self confidence guru.
Mm. Honestly, anything with my mouth. That may sound a little crazy, but I love doing voiceovers. I love doing like radio ads. I learned this when I was in the Virgin Islands. I really love talking. Okay, so anything that involves my mouth is like, that's my special talent, which also includes making food. So I'm really, really great in
Mm,
the kitchen.
mm.
I'm really great at like, I want that taste, and I can like cultivate what spices and stuff I need to make it get exactly what I want. So yes,
Wow, that's an art for sure.
yeah,
Do you sing as well?
I have tried. Not professionally trained, but there's a voice
Yeah.
there.
No, I'm just curious if you like singing because it involves your mouth,
Yeah, yeah, I
and
do. I sing
talking.
along a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's great to that's really cool. Um thinking about the yeah, the word. I mean, it's great coaching works well for you then, right? Getting
Yes.
us getting to talk here. The okay, and then what's your favorite thing to cook?
Ooh. Ooh. So as of late, we've been trying like different wing recipes. So I've been coming up with all different types of glazes and marinades and all that stuff. So right now it's like it's wings.
Wow, that
Yeah.
sounds. I'm like definitely getting hungry listening to this. And then the last thing is, if you could give the world one gift today,
Mm.
what would you give us?
Mm. If I could give the world one gift today, the gift that I would give is the freedom to be fully self-expressed.
Mm.
Yeah.
And if we all had the freedom to be
Mm.
fully self-expressed, what do you see us all doing?
Mm. I see us all speaking from the heart, less defenses, less ego, less faking it. And I think that would lead to a lot more authentic connections, whether that's
Mm.
in love, whether that's aligning with the proper business or career, um, living in your true body. I feel like there'd just be so much more authenticity in the world.
Yeah, nice.
Hmm.
Well, thank you so much for giving us that gift and just planting that seed that this is possible in the world today, and for walking the talk, for being these things and standing for it and standing for us. I feel like I got an upgrade today. I'm like so filled up. This is great. So if you're listening and this reaches you, or someone who needs to hear this, please share it. Please subscribe. Please reach out to Sarah. You can also reach out to me and I'll put you in touch with her. Or if you
Yeah.
have any questions about what we talked about here, her link is in the comments here. And if you are subscribed to our podcast, then you'll also be receiving an email with some really special items and tools. Along with this, you'll be the first one to hear about this. And you can get in touch with Sarah there as well. So Be sure to let us know what you think. And if there's any questions you have for her or me or something you'd love to hear us talk about on this podcast, put yourself out there. Let's ask, let's talk about it. And thank you for, being willing to talk about it with me and go there, Sarah. You create such a beautiful, safe space. And I think anyone would be really blessed to work with you.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for creating this space that gave me an opportunity to share what matters most to me and to reiterate the power and importance of being fully self-expressed. I think even in your request to submit your questions, like that's us being self-expressed, what is it that you want? What is it would make a difference for you? So thank you again.
Yeah, my pleasure. And please go find Sarah on LinkedIn, connect with her there or with us here. Thank you all for listening. Sarah, thank you for being so generous with your time. I can't wait to see what you create and come back and join us sometime. Will you give
Absolutely.
us a dude, you're getting well? Will you say that for our audience?
Yes, dude, you're getting well.
I love it. Thank you so much. It's great to hear you. Great to see you. Great to connect with you. And I'm in your corner, big cheerleader. Let's
Yes,
go.
yes, yes.
All
Thank
right.
you,
Have a
Don.
beautiful day. Stand by. Thank you so much.